Some built empires from mines, others from media and money. Together, they owned the power that shaped South Africa and the world beyond. These are the richest families in South Africa and the secrets behind their fortune. Number 10. Christo Wiese family. He was once the undisputed king of retail, a man whose empire sold not just products, but possibility. Christo began far from the glitter of billion-dollar boardrooms in a small South African town called Uppington. The son of a shopkeeper, he learned early that power doesn't always come from luxury. It comes from understanding what ordinary people need every single day. In the 1970s, he joined Pepkor, a discount clothing company built on one simple truth: South Africans didn't need designer brands. They needed durability and dignity at a fair price. Christo helped expand Pepkor from a handful of stores into a national chain with thousands of outlets, each one built on ruthless efficiency and relentless growth. But he wasn't done. His boldest move came in the 1980s when he bought a small grocery chain called Shoprite. At the time, most investors dismissed it. Too local, too small, too risky. Christo saw the opposite. He saw a supermarket that could outcompete international giants on one thing they couldn't replicate: local knowledge. He knew South Africans better than any foreign brand ever could. Over the next 3 decades, Shoprite became Africa's largest food retailer, spanning more than a dozen countries and serving millions of customers every day. Christo's formula was simple: low prices, high volume, and uncompromising logistics. His motto, "Pile it high, sell it cheap," turned out to be worth billions. At his peak, Christo's net worth exceeded $6 billion, his holdings extending beyond supermarkets into real estate, hospitality, and wine. He became one of Africa's richest men, a symbol of self-made success in a country still healing from inequality. In 2017, the Steinhoff accounting scandal exploded like a financial bomb. The company in which Christo had invested heavily after merging his Pepkor assets was exposed for massive fraud. Overnight, billions in shareholder value vanished, and with it, much of Christo's personal wealth. For most, that would have been the end, but Christo is not most. He fought back through courts, clawing back over $500 million in settlements, and quietly rebuilding through smart reinvestments in property, energy, and private equity. Today, his fortune is smaller than before. His legacy stands taller than ever, proof that true wealth isn't measured by what you keep, but by what you can rebuild. Christo remains South Africa's great retail revivalist, a man who turned economic adversity into an empire, lost it all, and still walked away as a legend. Number 9. Alan Gray family. In a world obsessed with noise, Alan Gray built his empire on silence. A silence filled with discipline, logic, and an almost stubborn patience. He wasn't born into money, nor did he chase headlines. Instead, he pursued something rarer: mastery. Born in East London, South Africa in 1938, Alan Gray's story reads less like a businessman's biography and more like a scholar's journey. After earning his degree at Rhodes University, he set his sights abroad, studying at Harvard Business School and working at Fidelity Investments in the United States. There, he absorbed the methods of value investing, the art of buying undervalued assets, and waiting quietly for the world to catch up. When he returned home in 1973, South Africa's economy was volatile, its markets uncertain, and its future unclear. But where others saw risk, Gray saw rhythm, the cyclical heartbeat of opportunity. He founded Alan Gray Investment Management with a philosophy rooted in long-term thinking and rigorous analysis. For decades, his firm grew steadily, not through marketing or hype, but through performance and trust. By the early 2000s, Alan Gray Limited had become one of Africa's most respected asset managers, overseeing tens of billions in client funds and consistently outperforming larger competitors. But Gray's influence didn't stop at borders. In 1996, he launched Orbis Investment Management in Bermuda, expanding globally while keeping the same principle at its core: patience beats prediction. At the height of his career, Alan Gray's personal fortune exceeded $1.3 billion, but you'd never know it from his lifestyle. No yachts, no tabloids, no extravagance. His legacy wasn't luxury, it was impact. Before his death in 2019, he transferred the bulk of his fortune to the Alan and Gil Gray Foundation, ensuring his wealth would serve causes far greater than himself. Today, that foundation is one of Africa's largest philanthropic institutions, funding education, entrepreneurship, and ethical leadership programs across the continent. Alan Gray built his empire quietly, lived humbly, and left the world richer than he found it, not in possessions, but in principles. Number 8. Stephen Saad family. Some people inherit empires, others build them from nothing, brick by brick, dose by dose. Stephen Saad began not with oil or gold, but with medicine, and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar force for change. Born in Durban in 1964, Saad wasn't raised in wealth. After earning his commerce degree at the University of Natal, he saw something most people overlooked. The African healthcare industry was broken, overpriced, and almost entirely controlled by foreign corporations. In 1997, he co-founded Aspen Pharmacare, determined to make high-quality, affordable medicine on African soil. The early years were lean and chaotic, but Saad had a strategy: acquire struggling firms, streamline production, and scale faster than anyone thought possible. The result was staggering. Within 2 decades, Aspen evolved into Africa's largest pharmaceutical manufacturer, supplying anesthetics, vaccines, and life-saving HIV treatments to over 150 countries. Stephen isn't a loud leader. He's methodical, disciplined, almost surgical in his decision-making. Colleagues describe him as the rare executive who measures success not by the share price, but by the number of lives improved. Skeptics said an African company could never compete globally. By 2013, Aspen had proven them wrong, signing billion-dollar licensing partnerships with Pfizer, GSK, and Johnson & Johnson. Today, Stephen Saad's fortune sits around $1.3 billion, but his true legacy isn't wealth, it's independence. He gave Africa control over its own supply of critical medicine, transforming a once import-dependent industry into a symbol of resilience. Number 7. Michiel Le Roux family. Banking in South Africa was once a fortress, walled off by formality, fees, and fine print. Then came Le Roux, a banker who decided that simplicity could be more powerful than prestige. Born in Stellenbosch, Le Roux spent decades inside traditional banking circles before realizing the system was designed to exclude the very people it claimed to serve. In 2001, he co-founded Capitec Bank with a mission that bordered on rebellion: make banking clear, affordable, and accessible to everyone, not just the elite. At the time, his idea sounded naive. South Africa's banking industry was dominated by a handful of legacy giants, each confident that customers wouldn't trade marble floors for minimal fees. But Le Roux wasn't chasing image, he was chasing efficiency. Capitec offered what no one else dared: one low-fee account, transparent interest rates, and a technology-first system that gave ordinary people control over their own money. Within a decade, Capitec went from an outsider startup to the second largest retail bank in South Africa, with more than 20 million customers. Le Roux's leadership style mirrors his philosophy: quiet, direct, and deeply practical. He avoids the spotlight, rarely gives interviews, and focuses on outcomes rather than optics. His net worth, estimated at $2.5 billion, comes not from speculation, but from serving the masses. An irony not lost on those who once dismissed him. Today, Capitec is more than a bank. It's a symbol of financial inclusion. Le Roux proved that innovation doesn't have to come from Silicon Valley. It can start in Stellenbosch with a whiteboard, a spreadsheet, and the courage to rethink the system. Number 6. Koos Becker family. In the swirling universe of media, money, and technology, few figures have rewritten the rules quite like Koos Becker. He didn't inherit a media empire. He built one out of ink, risk, and perfect timing. Born in 1952 in Potchefstroom, Becker studied law and later earned an MBA from Columbia University in New York. But instead of climbing corporate ladders, he preferred to build them. When he joined Naspers, a small Afrikaans print publisher, the company was struggling to adapt to a digital world that was moving faster than newsprint could dry. Becker saw what others missed. The internet wasn't a threat, it was the future. In the late 1990s, while most executives were still learning how email worked, Becker made one of the boldest bets in corporate history, investing in a small Chinese tech startup called Tencent. That single decision turned Naspers from a local publisher into a global digital powerhouse, with its stake in Tencent alone eventually worth tens of billions of dollars. What makes Becker unique isn't just his foresight, it's his philosophy. He famously refused a salary, choosing instead to earn compensation through performance-linked shares. His wealth, now exceeding $3 billion, is built entirely on the success of the companies he helped grow. Becker avoids the limelight. He doesn't chase headlines or fame, yet his influence stretches across continents. Under his guidance, Naspers expanded into e-commerce, streaming, fintech, and online classifieds, shaping how millions of people shop, watch, and communicate every day. At home, he's known for his sharp intellect and his passion for architecture and the arts. restaurants. His Cape Dutch-style wine estate in Franschhoek Valley reflects the same blend of tradition and innovation that defines his career. Number 5. Patrice Motsepe family. In a land once divided by color and class, Patrice built bridges made of steel, gold, and quiet determination. Born in Soweto in 1962 during the height of apartheid, Patrice's journey began in a world designed to limit him. His father owned a small spaza shop and taught him early the power of numbers, not just in counting coins, but in calculating opportunity. Patrice studied law at the University of the Witwatersrand, becoming one of the country's first black partners at a major firm. But behind the courtroom confidence was a businessman waiting to emerge. When South Africa began dismantling apartheid in the 1990s, industries were shifting and few knew how to navigate that change better than Motsepe. He founded African Rainbow Minerals in 1997, purchasing underperforming mining operations that others saw as liabilities. His strategy was brilliant in its simplicity: buy low, operate lean, and reinvest constantly. Within a few years, African Rainbow Minerals became a mining powerhouse, producing gold, platinum, and iron ore, and turning once failing sites into profitable ventures. But what truly sets Patrice apart is his mindset. He's not just a miner, he's a modern capitalist with conscience. His investments extend into finance, insurance, and sports, including ownership of Mamelodi Sundowns, one of Africa's most successful football clubs. His estimated net worth exceeds $3.2 billion, but his wealth has never been his mission. Patrice was the first African to sign the Giving Pledge, committing to donate more than half of his fortune to philanthropic causes through the Motsepe Foundation. Education, healthcare, and poverty reduction remain at the heart of his legacy, and while he walks among the elite, he does so without excess, reserved, composed, and fiercely grounded. Number 4. Ivan Glasenberg family. When Ivan Glasenberg moves, markets tremble. He's the miner who became a kingmaker, the unseen hand behind some of the most powerful commodity deals on the planet. Born in Johannesburg in 1957, Glasenberg's rise wasn't scripted by privilege, but by obsession. He studied accounting at the University of the Witwatersrand and earned his MBA at USC in California. But his real education came underground, in the brutal, unpredictable world of global resource trading. In the 1980s, he joined Mark Rich & Company, a controversial commodities firm specializing in oil, coal, and metals, where he learned how power really moved across borders. When the company rebranded as Glencore, Glasenberg's influence exploded. By the early 2000s, he had transformed Glencore from a shadowy trading house into a multinational mining empire, producing and distributing everything from coal to copper, zinc to oil. Under his leadership, Glencore didn't just extract resources, it controlled supply chains, shaping global prices and government policies alike. In 2011, Glasenberg took Glencore public in what became one of the largest IPOs in London Stock Exchange history, instantly cementing his billionaire status. His personal fortune, estimated at $6 billion, made him one of South Africa's wealthiest and most powerful individuals. Yet, for all his wealth, Glasenberg remains famously private. He gives few interviews, owns no lavish yachts, and lives with monk-like simplicity, a paradoxical humility for a man who helped redraw the map of global trade. His critics call him ruthless, his peers call him brilliant, but everyone agrees on one thing: when Ivan Glasenberg makes a move, the world feels it. He doesn't need fame, followers, or fanfare. His influence is measured not in headlines, but in the price of copper, the flow of oil, and the heartbeat of the global economy. Number 3. Johann Rupert family. In a world obsessed with speed and spectacle, Johann Rupert built an empire around patience. Where others chased trends, he crafted timelessness, a fortune measured not in flash, but in legacy. Born in Stellenbosch in 1950, Rupert was the eldest son of Anton Rupert, the legendary industrialist who founded the Rembrandt Group, a company that began with tobacco and grew into one of South Africa's largest conglomerates. But Johann's ambitions stretched far beyond the family business. In the late 1980s, he founded Richest, a Swiss-based luxury holding company that now owns some of the most prestigious brands in the world: Cartier, Montblanc, Dunhill, and Van Cleef & Arpels, to name a few. Under his leadership, Richemont became a global force, rivaling luxury giants like LVMH in both influence and elegance. Yet Rupert's empire is more than wristwatches and cufflinks. Through his other holding companies, Remgro and Rene Investments, he oversees a web of interests spanning banking, healthcare, media, and energy. quietly shaping industries that touch millions of lives. Despite a net worth surpassing $10 billion, Rupert lives far from the chaos of celebrity capitalism. He rarely appears in public, preferring fly fishing in the Cape Winelands over flashing cameras. Those who know him describe a man of old world values, reserved, deeply intelligent, and fiercely protective of quality. His critics call him aloof. His admirers call him the last gentleman industrialist. But whether loved or resented, his impact is undeniable. Rupert turned South Africa into a cornerstone of global luxury, and in doing so became one of the most powerful yet understated billionaires alive. Johann Rupert's influence isn't measured in brand names. It's measured in heritage, craftsmanship, and the quiet confidence of knowing his creations will outlast every trend. Number 2, Nicky Oppenheimer family. For more than a century, the name Oppenheimer has gleamed with the same brilliance as the diamonds that built their empire. In South Africa's story of wealth and power, no family embodies legacy quite like theirs. Nicky Oppenheimer, born in 1945, inherited not just a fortune, but a responsibility. As the third generation of a dynasty that once controlled over 80% of the global diamond trade, he carried forward a legacy forged by his grandfather Ernest Oppenheimer, founder of Anglo-American, and his father Harry Oppenheimer, the titan who turned De Beers into a global symbol of perfection. Educated at Harrow and Oxford, Nicky entered the business world not as a figurehead, but as a steward. When he became chairman of De Beers, he faced the challenge of modernizing a company that symbolized both beauty and controversy. Under his leadership, De Beers evolved from a colonial-era monopoly into a modern luxury brand, balancing ethics, transparency, and environmental awareness in an industry built on scarcity. In 2012, the Oppenheimer family sold their 40% stake in De Beers to Anglo-American for $5.1 billion, marking the end of an era but not of their influence. Since then, Nicky has reinvested his wealth through Stockdale Street Capital and Fireblade Aviation, expanding into private equity, logistics, and conservation. His personal fortune, estimated at $8.5 billion, makes him one of Africa's richest individuals, yet his public presence remains minimal. The Oppenheimers own vast tracts of land across South Africa, Botswana, and Zimbabwe, not for profit but for preservation. Their Tswalu Kalahari Reserve is the largest private game reserve in South Africa, a sanctuary where wildlife, not wealth, takes center stage. Nicky Oppenheimer represents the rarest form of power, quiet endurance. He is the diamond of dynasties, formed under pressure, polished by generations, and destined to shine long after trends fade. Number 1, Jannie Mouton family. Every empire begins with a dream, but few begin with being fired at 48. Jannie Mouton was a respected stockbroker when he was abruptly dismissed from his own firm. Most men would have retired quietly. He decided to start over. That single moment of humiliation became the spark that built one of South Africa's greatest financial success stories. In 1995, with little capital but unshakable conviction, Mouton founded PSG Group, a modest investment firm based in Stellenbosch. What followed was nothing short of extraordinary. Through a mix of discipline, daring, and an instinct for spotting value where others saw risk, PSG grew into a multi-billion rand conglomerate. Its reach stretched across banking, education, insurance, agriculture, and technology, with stakes in giants like Capitec Bank, Curro Schools, and Zetter Investments. Mouton's formula was simple: surround yourself with people smarter than you, treat every cent like it's your last, and never forget the lesson that failure teaches humility. By the time of his passing in 2022, Jannie Mouton had transformed his initial setback into a family legacy worth over $2 billion, guided by his two sons, Pierre and Jean Mouton, who continued to grow PSG's influence across Africa. Yet, despite his wealth, Jannie lived modestly. His focus was never on yachts or fame. It was on building something that would last. Friends called him the Boer Buffett. Not just for his investing genius, but for his philosophy: stay patient, stay ethical, and always bet on people before profits.